Yes, indeed, folks, it's Unit Blue, please, here on WoW Radio with myself, Total Biscuit. Now, I said a little while ago that I was having a little bit of a contest with undergroundwow.blogspot.com, which is a site that reviews podcasts. Yep, and hopefully does so in a harsh and critical manner, and indeed got one highly upset lately, and I must say that I chortled heartily at it. Yes, indeed. If you want to go check that out, it's undergroundwow.blogspot.com, and I encourage them to be equally critical to our podcasts, because, hey, that's like a free bunch of independent analysts to help us fix our shows. Why would we hate that? But evidently someone did. If you want to go read about that, you can do so. Just go read on their front page. You will see perhaps a familiar face to some of you. Indeed. And apparently he hasn't grown up yet. What a shame for him. Now, I did announce a little bit of a contest because I wanted people to comment on this and get involved in this particular site because I quite like it. And the contest was to win a signed art book for the Burning Crusade, and I am going to announce the winner now, and the winner is a guy by the name of Crashed Yellow. He has been randomly pulled out of the hat, so if Crashed Yellow, you'd like to email me at totalbasket@wcradio.com to confirm your identity, then we can sort out your prize. Yes, indeed, thank you for those of you who commented, and hopefully you go and read undergroundwow.blogspot.com, because it is, in my opinion, a very well-written blog, and I'm looking forward to having my show audited once more and criticised appropriately. Indeed. Now, I've got a few more emails to read, so I'm going to do that right now. This is on the subject of buying gold. This is an interesting one. I've got one here. I have bought 8,000 gold in the past because I was planning on creating a DK. When I hit level 80, I had spent most of that gold on all of the flying skills plus an epic mount, which I consider vital because the normal flying mount speed seems to be held back by invisible hands, and travelling that slow watching the ground before you crawl makes me want to scratch my own eyes out. I can get that. My professions are blacksmithing and scribe, and with those I didn't make a lot of money while leveling. Understandable. Why the hell would you do that anyway? That's like 2 creation professions, no gathering. That's nuts. Of course I didn't make any money. I started raiding and obtaining gear that needed to be enchanted. That 8,000 gold I had bought, plus whatever amount I got from looting mobs and turning in quests, was reduced to a mere 300 gold by the time we had cleared the current content. Basically, all gold I have bought and obtained while leveling went into gold sinks rather than the economy. Buying gold made my experience a lot easier and more fun. If I hadn't bought the gold, I probably wouldn't have been able to keep up with the hardcore raiding, which is pretty much the only reason I play the game. I needed my DK to be 80 fast and at 80 enchanted and gemmed up. The extra gold helped me do that. This makes me think that buying gold isn't necessarily a bad thing. If you buy a huge amount of gold and use it to crash markets or dominate the AH, I can understand people getting upset. But if you buy that gold purely to get those luxuries Blizzard has put in the game to make it more enjoyable, I don't see the problem. This would almost make me believe that the reason Blizzard has priced certain things as they do is because they had to sink gold, rather than just making these items difficult to obtain. In a way, making these luxuries so expensive is actually stimulating people to buy gold. They want something like the 16k vendor mount, for example, but 16k is still quite difficult to obtain. People simply can't be bothered playing the game purely to make gold. They just want their stuff and to get along with it. In short, I believe buying gold can be both acceptable and unacceptable depending on what it's used for. Buying gold to sink it for luxuries, I don't mind. People buying gold so they can affect the economy is wrong. This, of course, will make us wonder what is considered luxuries and what is not. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of an issue that I've got there. I think that buying gold for a 16k mount is pretty ridiculous because you don't need that 16k mount. I can sort of understand. Bearing in mind, I did all my stuff the hard way, so I don't have a lot of sympathy for people that do buy gold and say, oh, it's too hard. It's like, you know, I work a 40-hour week job. I've got a wife and family, and I've got WoW Radio to run. You think you're busy? Try living a day in my shoes. I mean, good lord. But I still managed to get my epic flying mount by legitimate means, and I wouldn't get a mammoth or a chopper or anything like that. That's outside of my gold range, but I don't need them either. I also went for like 2 years without having an epic flyer. I suppose being a mage is kind of advantageous, but to be honest, I don't think that stuff is needed. I think people do really just make up excuses in that regard. Say, oh, well, I need an epic flyer. I've got to have an epic flyer. And you certainly don't need one for raiding, that's for sure. Particularly with the ability to summon inside instances now. But anyway, thank you very much for your emails, guys. I'm going to be covering some more topics perhaps next week at the start of the show. And if you are listening to the podcast and want to contribute to this particular discussion, then by all means, email themurloc@gmail.com. That is themurloc@gmail.com. Righto. It is time for the illusion of choice, whereby we choose one of your topics and give you the illusion that you matter. And the topic I'm going to choose this week is this. It's from Estelle, a level 80 Tauren Boomkin of Grip of Saul Defies Brotherhood EU, and they have emailed in with the following topic. Hey TB, For an illusion of choice topic, I have the following for you. What do you think of the fact that there's been no indication of Yogg-Saron and or Algernon on the Observer to be available on the PTR? Is it possible that Blizzard might have a functional internal testing team still, without relying on players to beta test their content, or do you think it might become another SSC debacle? That's from Estelle. Now that is an interesting question. I hope, might be wishful thinking here. I certainly hope that's what's happening, that they are not going to be testing Yogg-Saron and they're not going to be testing Algernon. Because, to be honest, it would be nice to see a legitimate world first run again. It would. By guilds that have not already tested the content to death and the tactics are not already all over the internet. Now, I think that the average guild is going to end up running into the situation where they're going to have to, they'll see the tactics, etc., and they're probably not going to get the chance to do the stuff for new. But it would be nice, at least for a few guilds, to be able to do that, particularly if they're not PTR testing Yogg-Saron. Now, I would hope that they've learned, particularly from the lessons that occurred in SSC and TK, because SSA particularly was buggy as all hell, and it didn't properly get tested in the beta by any stretch. It wasn't ready. Perhaps one could argue that they brought the instance out too soon, executors. But to be honest, I feel that there was a good amount of content at the start of the TBC, and it's unfortunate that, particularly with the final boss, the content was just so buggy. I would think that 2 and a bit years on, they have learned and they have got better, and if they manage to pull that off, if they pull off a bug-free Yogg-Saron and whatever he said, Algernon, the Observer or whatever, if they pull that off without testing it, I'm going to take back a lot of the stuff that I've said, really, because that would be a genuinely challenging encounter that guilds are now actually going to have to learn again and won't be able to either data mine or learn on the test realm or whatever. It would be very, very nice indeed to see that happen. Should they? Should they risk buggy content as opposed to letting the players test it but then taking all the mystery out of the instance? It's a difficult call to make. As an observer of the endgame raid stuff and as a member of a relatively hardcore, quote-unquote, whatever that means anymore, raiding guild, I see the value in ensuring that these encounters remain nice and untouched and ready to be discovered. I understand that the vast majority of the instance does need to be tested, but I think this is something that Blizzard has to bear in mind, that the uber-hardcore, cutting-edge, bleeding-edge guilds are more willing to deal with buggy end-game content than everyone else is. They have been bug testing for a long time. They've run into all of this kind of thing. And while there have been complaints from them, they will always keep doing it. And they get, of course, as a reward for that, the ability to play that content first, because, hey, they're good enough to justify it. They get the world first, they get those epic loots before anybody else. They're more willing than you might think to test the content. Now, of course, if someone is in one of those Uber guilds and say a top 20 and wants to prove me wrong, then they can email themurloc@gmail.com. But a long time ago, we actually had a similar discussion to this on the Four Horsemen show, which consisted of a one-off debate session between members of Death and Taxes Method, Forte, and Nihilum. And the topic did come up that, yes, there was a lot of buggy content, but they did have quite a bit of fun going up against it. Some of it was really nasty. Really, really nasty. I'm talking about, say, Cthulhu basically being unbeatable until they hotfixed him. Razorgore had similar issues, Veilstraz had similar issues, and I can't imagine that banging your head up against that kind of content is particularly pleasant. But I would imagine that most bleeding-edge raiding guilds would prefer to have an encounter that is going to challenge them and that they will have to learn and discover themselves and get the opportunity to maybe be the first to do so and beat it, than have a bug-free but otherwise completely laid out very clearly in front of them encounter that they've already beaten on the PTR. I can't imagine that being particularly exciting for them. In an ideal world, and to be honest, this is something that Blizzard really should be shooting for, is it would be a situation whereby both happened. We'd have a nice bug-free instance that they didn't have to enter, but looking back at Blackwing Lair and the fact that that never got tested and it was mostly a mess, whether or not Blizzard can pull that off, I don't know. Maybe they've learned over the past 3 years. Maybe they've simply got better at testing internally, but there's not really been an awful lot to indicate that that is the case, because everything has been extensively PTR tested, back to front, and I don't think that they're really willing to risk another Blackwing Lair. So maybe they're just going to try it on a small scale with 2 bosses. Maybe. And if they can pull it off, then more power to them. They will get mucho prezo from me. That I can guarantee. Shout out time, folks. It's the end of the show. It's time for you to shout out before our very special, quote-unquote, perhaps special spelled S-P-E-S-H-U-L, song by yours truly. Shout out time. You can email themurloc@gmail.com or you can PM me on IRC. Yes, you can. PM me on IRC and you will be able to shout out to whatever you want. Maybe you can shout out to your cat or perhaps your grandmother, who's probably not listening to this show, let's face it, but it's the thought that counts. That's what I keep being told. Particularly when I ordered a dozen white roses for Jen for her birthday, and as usual, the florist screwed up and sent her red roses, which she doesn't actually really like. But apparently it was the thought that counts. As a male, I don't really understand that. I just like having epics, and the thought of having epics is not quite as good as having them. Anyway, let's get on with the shout-outs. Shout-out from Joe Miller. Hey, TV, can I get a shout-out to Deathhawk, the best guild officer, Horde side on Ice Crown US. Really? The best guild officer, Horde side on Ice Crown US is called Deathhawk? Honestly? Well, that's not very promising, is it? A shout-out to Arcanist Belt and a scream for Arcanist Belt. Turn up to raids tomorrow, guys. We're going to be doing some cool stuff. If you are in Arcanist Belt, then turn up to raids tomorrow. We'll be raiding at 4 p.m. server time. Go sign up on the website, arcanistbelt.com. A shout-out to the Furious Few on Daggerspine EU for being awesome and getting Black Protos. Let's Bone Face in Old War 2. That's from Zandy, Retribution Paladin. Paladoink? What? Paladoink? Or Pala... I don't know. Anyway, shout out to Guild Corrupt... What the hell is that? Why do people come up with these stupid names? It's like, we're so intelligent with this. Oh, it's perhaps a conjugation of the Latin, rather than that. It's not a conjugation of the Latin, it's a conjugation of bollocks. I can't even pronounce that name. How am I supposed to shout out to you? Next one. Hi, TB. I hope this is the right place for shout-outs. Yes, it is. A pretty new for IRC, therefore utterly hopeless, blah, 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 blah. Can I have a shout-out to my guild Synergy on Quell Falas EU, who finally managed to take down Sarth 3 Drakes 25 man. Very well done to that, and thanks very much for doing these shows. They're the highlight of my week. Then you must have a very, very boring week. Can I have a shout-out to Testicular Dominance? That's from Seath. Why? Why must you do this? A shout out to Sai, Seath, Davlin, and the RC crew, by the way. Excellent show as always. That's from Tom and Tom. A shout out to no. It means seize the beer. No, it doesn't, actually. I don't believe it actually means seize the beer, because seize the is carpe. So, it's not careep. So I don't know what the hell you're doing, but that's not real Latin. Someone has hoodwinked you. A shout out to Illumination Argent Dawn EU for finally making Immortal. Well done, you won the RNG. You were part of the 2% of guilds that have won the server RNG. What can I say? A shout out to the raid, or to Rad, for coming back to WoW and re-rolling Horde with us. That's from Angelus. Can I get a small shout out? Yes, you can. There you go. That's it. Small shout out. Okay. A shout out to Save the Whales and Frostmate EU and to Core/Bacon for doing well. Nothing really, he just needs it. Can I get a shout out to my 82-year-old grandpa whom I have just convinced to play WoW with me? My epic quota for this year has indeed been fulfilled. That's from Criken Zero. Wow. Huh. There you go. A shout out to Nikitas for being a first-time listener. Well done, Nikitas. You have successfully tuned into the internet's radios. That's too long. I can't read that. Shout-outs are not supposed to be essay length. Dissolution Guild for Mike Third in US server. Thanks, that's from Tagol. And a shout-out to my cat for being the subject of my guild officer's official religion under the name of the Meow Meow God. That's from Zexen from Jumol EU. I am out of time, folks. My name's been Total Biscuit, and you've been listening to the one and only Blue Please on WoW Radio. Check out the rest of our shows at WCRadio.com. Our RSS feeds are currently broken, but you can download all of our archives from our website, and new archives are being posted on the front page. Hopefully, we're going to be having that fixed by the end of the weekend. That's the current time frame on it. We'll see how it goes. So yeah, check out our website, WCRadio.com. That is where you will find it. And the next show to air will be While Things Considered, tonight at 7 p.m. EST, I believe, or perhaps 8 p.m. I can't remember which. Check the website for more information. Now, I promised you a song. You shall get a song. It's to the tune of Iron Maiden's The Trooper, and I call it The Troop Saw. My name has been Total Biscuit. I'm out of here. Good night. but I'll gank yours too. But I'll just bring a bigger sword than you. So while you're waiting for the next attack, I'll bring my rogue and stab you in the back. You're raising up, your charge begins. Against your warrior, my hunter wins. I bet you wish you'd rolled on PvE. I bid you welcome into STV. So you turn to run. Isn't PvP a load of fun? A nesting wherries is a little cramped. Delicious tears, now your corpse is camped. A ton of bodies lying on the ground. Are you ready for another round? I'm still alive, much to your dismay. You should have stayed in Iron Forge today. What you were doing, and what I was doing when you came along. And now you're dead. Perhaps you should consider another career path. How about professional whiner? I hear the Care Bear Brigade is hiring. Better get your application in. Oh no, you can't RP your way out of this one. What's your in-character reason going to be? For getting corn scamped all day? Oh yes, sir, this is PvP. Only the elites may apply. STV to pick a fight. Ganking my 30 wasn't very bright. I logged my 80 with my 20 friends. Your leveling is surely at an end. So when you're thinking that you'd like to gank, you should consider staying as a tank. You see, I had my ults logged in this zone. I tour the forums now to cry and moan. Let this be a lesson. There's always a bigger fish. Enjoy Hello Kitty Adventure Island. Yeah.